bring in here the Commonwealth Bank's Energy and Commodities Analyst, Vivek Dhar. And Vivek, look, thanks for your time. As we explained there are costs for the whole world if there are any future sanctions or bans on Russian oil.
That's right. And it's important to note, though, that prices are already reflecting some disruptions already. Keep in mind that the banking and finance sanctions have already resulted in logistics being frozen. So trying to get commodity trade financing, whether you're talking about wheat, whether you're talking about aluminium, nickel, talking about oil, it's all being affected right now. And we're estimating that in Russian oil exports, around 70% is actually frozen due to banking and finance sanctions already.
Well, I had a little bit of a look at the world, sort of consumption of oil. Now, it seems to me as though Russia produces somewhere between 8 and 9% of the world's oil. Taking that out, you cannot simply take that out without having a supply side shock on the other side. So it's not as though you can simply turn on the taps elsewhere and try and make up that deficit, is it?
Absolutely. And I think this is going to be one of the key issues as the US looks to potentially put an oil embargo on Russian oil, is that it's not going to be easy to replace. There's reports that they're looking at Venezuela. We have the potential for Iran to come back. But even if you look at what they can potentially add over the next 6 months, immediately, that supply disruption that we're talking about from Russia is going to be significant and very hard to replace in the near term.
So the reality of this situation is that while there might be very harsh sanctions on Russia, trade finance might be hard to get, the world actually needs Russia's energy. It needs its supply of oil and even gas into Europe. Otherwise, it's going to disrupt economies in other parts of the world.
I'd say that's very true. That when we talk about completely trying to stop the linkage to Russian oil and gas, it's particularly difficult for Europe. And that's why we saw Europe trying to distance themselves from comments from the US Secretary of State over the weekend, that they can't afford to actually do this. It's very, very challenging for the European market to just say no to Russian oil and gas. This has been a linkage that's been growing since the 1990s. To sever it just immediately without any other way to substitute that level of consumption from Russia, it just spells trouble for the European economy, but the spillover effects, particularly for emerging Asia, will be very, very significant. So this is very topical for a number of economies right now.
Because, Vivek, the one thing is, while the world might be trying to hurt Russia, what it doesn't want to do is hurt itself at the same time. But that's the reality.
That's right. The whole sanctions idea was that can we penalize Russia without penalizing ourselves? And this, trying to walk that tightrope has been very challenging on the energy side. So we were surprised when we heard the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, even mention the fact that an oil embargo is being discussed. For us, this is a Gear 5 kind of sanction and something that the market right now, given the state of oil markets, certainly didn't want to hear, but it has certainly now become a live issue. And it has meant that oil price volatility is at levels that will continue to be elevated for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Vivek Dhar, Commodities Analyst at the Commonwealth Bank, thank you so much for your time today. Well, as Omicron